Talk to me about specifically that first one. What were you looking for?
Yep.
What was your thesis? And I guess, how did you learn? How did you learn about buying, as you call them, boring businesses?
Yeah. Well, I had a benefit, which is as a journalist, I sort of infiltrated finance. I'm not technically as intelligent. I'm not a financial modeling guru. I'm not a lot of things that people are in finance, but I'm pretty decent at asking questions and then figuring out who are the right people that could get me the answers. And so what I realized pretty quickly is we were doing a bunch of deals. I was doing deals that were tens of millions, hundreds of millions, and billion-dollar deals. And I don't know why it took me so long, but I realized there's no difference, like materially, between $1 billion, $100 million, a $10 million deal, and a $1 million deal. And if that's the case, then I bet if I have a couple $100,000 or $10,000, I could do a much smaller deal. Wouldn't I be able to do the exact same thing? So I saw behind the curtain, like at the Wizard of Oz, and realized that the wizard was actually pretty short. And because I saw that, then I just said, well, now we just work backwards. And just like you would buy, a $100 million condo unit or, condo building, you could see how you could go all the way back and buy your first studio, right? It's the same thing with businesses. It's just stair-stepping real estate. And so at the time, my biggest constraint was not knowledge. I knew how to do deals. It was time. I was working 60, 70 hours a week. And so one of the first deals I did was a laundromat deal because I figured, well, you don't need somebody to run it full time. And it was a $100K transaction. And so that wouldn't bankrupt me. And, I could buy a little business like this, and that business could keep running even while I wasn't there. And I could have an operator that could probably help me with anything that went sideways.
Where did you find a laundromat to buy for 100K? What, was it a website? Did you know the guy? Or
no, know the guy. So basically what happened for my first deals, I didn't have a framework. So it was just, hey, I do these really big deals. Could I do a smaller deal? And if I could do a smaller deal, what would be the easiest small deal to do that would be the least risk? And so at the time, I knew a guy that was running a couple of laundromats. So I basically said to him, hey, if I find one for you, will you help me operate it? And he knew how to do that. So the very first one we had was in California. And that's one of the secrets to this is two things. First, you have to learn how to do deals, which is not really that complex. We just make it sound complex in finance because financial lingo is like the moat around how we make money, right? The less people speak our language, the more we can charge them, which is the secret. And then the second aspect was how to run a laundromat, right? Like, I don't know, machine breaks, what am I going to do? And so then I had this guy who knew how to run these, and I could just find the deal for him, close the deal for him, and be the cash for him.
Why did they sell to you?
Old, these are 68-year-old owners of a business that have been running this laundromat plus a bunch of other small businesses in the vicinity for 20, 30 years. And so can you imagine running your podcast for 30 years? It'd probably be fun, but by the end, you might be open to selling. Now imagine you had a laundromat for 30 years. You're dealing with broken machines, or there's somebody who's homeless messing around with some stuff. At a certain point, you don't even want to continue with a profitable business. And this is where people get it so wrong. All the time on the internet, people love to tell me, no way would anybody sell a business. That business made $67,000 in profit. So I bought it for $100K a year. Did $67,000. And people on the internet do one of two things to that. They go, no fucking way, it didn't happen. And why would somebody sell? And did you give them a bad deal? And the second group of people go, that's a terrible deal. I'd never do that deal because you don't have enough profit in that for that to be a business, not a job. So those are the two things. And to the first one, I'd say in the US right now, there are tens of millions of small businesses for sale that will never sell. And I tell a story about my Uncle Eb, who had a small business that was exactly that he closed down, which by the way, costs you money, as opposed to selling, because he had no idea his business was sellable. Like many businesses that I had before I did this, I shut down instead of selling them. I didn't even realize that, even though I was in finance. And then to the second group, I'd say, you start with a small business that probably isn't the greatest business for you to own long term, but businesses are like real estate. You can turn around and sell them after you get in the game. But I think of these businesses, I call them gateway drug businesses. They're once you learn how to do a deal, you'll never see the world the same again. It will change your entire perspective on everything. You will walk in everywhere and you will realize that business is full of masochists like you and me who do this despite it being awful. many times, but we love it in some way. But at some point, we're going to want to sell our thing and move on to the next. And so everywhere around you, right now, wherever you are, somebody sitting next to you wants to sell their business. And what if you could figure out how to buy that business, put in an operator in it, and then do it again and again and again? And that's the only difference between you and Warren Buffett or Blackstone or these big, huge companies.